All right, guys, one thing I enjoy doing is trying to kind of find a lot of new water to fish. Always kind of a challenge finding new walleye water, especially a lot of these little ones, right? We all know of the big crazy walleye lakes, the Lake Michigans, the Lake Erie's, the Mississippi rivers, the Leech Lakes, the Mille Lacs, all these big bodies of water. One of the funnest things to do, which I really enjoy doing, is finding a lot of like little undiscovered walleye water. And 99% of the time you strike out whenever you're on this type of mission, and it just doesn't pan out. You don't see what you want to see. But a lot of the work beforehand is spent on the computer. Really, whichever state you're in, a lot of times you can find spring surveys or FikeNet surveys or fall electroshocking surveys to kind of give you a little bit of what is out there, right? So a lot of times when I'm doing this, I look for a couple of different things. One of those things would be quality size. Now, what I don't want to see is like the bulk of this population of fish is under 20 inches because, you know, as you probably do as well, you enjoy catching quality fish. And so I'd like to see plenty of bars and plenty of captures in that 20 plus for sure. And a lot of times 99% of the time, if you find a small walleye lake that's under 1,000 acres, you're going to see a very similar size curve. And that's going to be one that peaks out like at 15 or 16 inches and then just declines very fast with maybe a couple captures at 23, 24, 25, and a lot of captures of 12 to 14 inch fish. Needless to say, those lakes aren't really what we're looking for. So what I'd like to see is plenty of those captures from some kind of survey in that higher size range. Now, the next thing I always look for when I try to do these things is density. Because when you start, density, basically the way they do it, I mean, this is going to be a very archaic definition of how they do this. It's going to be based on recaptures, and then they, over the course of a year or a couple of years, they kind of estimate the population density of adult walleyes per acre. And I believe an adult is something like 14 or 15 inches and up. Now, you don't want densities, obviously, that are like 0.2 adult fish per acre. That's going to be a tough lake to find a walleye in. A good density a lot of times is like one adult fish per acre. So in a 500 acre lake, you might be talking about 500 adult walleyes, and then maybe another 500 sub-adult walleyes, those tiny little, yearling dinkers or whatever. And a really dense lake, a really well-developed walleye lake will have like a mid 1.5 something to 3 point something. Normally when you start getting towards numbers 3.5 adults and up, it seems like you start dealing with a lot of short fish because the system's like it's got too many of these same similar sized walleyes in it. And those fish just seemingly don't hit that next size range. So those are kind of a couple things I look for. Now, I've gone to a lot of these lakes and fished before and caught 0 walleyes. I've done this a couple times and caught big walleyes and numbers of them. But each time you start, it's, the likelihood of success is very low. So you kind of got to set your expectations accordingly, right? You're not going to go out there and catch 30 fish. You're not going to go out there and have the best day of big walleye fishing you've ever had. If you can go out there and piece something together, or maybe you catch 3 to 5 fish that are decent sized fish, 15 to 23, 24 inches long, that's going to be a massive success on a lot of these bodies of water. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. You're not going to go over a sand flat or a weed edge and say like, oh, look, there's 50 fish right here and start catching 25 inches on every cast. It doesn't happen in these lakes. But with pressure, a lot of these smaller lakes that are good, getting a lot more notoriety, people fishing them, it kind of pushes you to a lot of times find these little undiscovered lakes. So that's what we're doing today. I've picked one out, which I've done a little bit of digging on over the course of the last couple days. Doesn't look great, doesn't look terrible. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to bounce to one of these real small lakes and hope to put something together. Well, after a beautiful, bright, sunny sunrise, we get to the lake, thick cloud bank. That's generally a sign of fall coming, because the lake is much warmer than the air. And it'll probably burn off here in a little bit, though. We got a little bit of wind. But whenever you get to one of these small lakes, obviously they're not very big, so it doesn't take long just to drive a circle around the lake, right? Any little bump on the shoreline, any little hump in the middle, and just look at everything real quick. Couple of important things you always want to note: what depth are the weeds at? Is there basin structure? Is there little hard bottom spots out in a 20-foot basin? Is there little rock chunks out in 25 feet of water in a 30-foot basin? A couple things like that. And then number two, obviously anywhere you're seeing fish, drop a waypoint on them. Now in these small lakes, in my experience, you're going to mark bass, you're going to mark crappies, you're going to mark pike, and maybe you'll mark a few walleyes. But it takes such a short amount of time to kind of drive around these locations that it's always worth just kind of one quick loop around anything on the map that has any level of interest, just to kind of get an idea of, you know, a few of those things we talked about: weed edge, fish, hard bottom structure in the middle of the lake. So that's what we're going to do: putt around quick and then just start rifling through these spots real fast. Well, guys, after 30-40 minutes of driving around, we pretty much covered 75% of the lake, which is good enough for me for now. Weed edge, 10 feet. The important thing about noting the depth of a weed edge is if that weed edge is in like 2 or 3, probably not going to be a lot of walleyes relating to it. But if that weed edge is in like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 feet of water, definitely could be walleyes relating to it. So that's kind of in a lot of these natural lakes, these small little pothole lakes like this. If you have a weed edge that's in 10 feet, walleyes could potentially relate to that all season long. So that's always a very good thing to note right off the bat. Also, I found 2 spots that had, well, 3 spots. One was like 25 feet deep in the middle of the lake that had rock on it. Didn't see any fish on it. Those fish would have popped pretty good if they were there. But also saw 2 shallower rock spots, like little points that came off the shoreline, where right at the tip of it was rock. And anytime you're in one of these small lakes and you got rock meeting weeds on a point dropping off, definitely has potential. So we're just going to fire through a couple of these areas real quick and see what happens. Now, your bait presentation, a lot of these little lakes in the fall, there's no need to complicate anything too much. 1/4 ounce gold hammered pendu. And we're also getting a whole lot of flack online all of a sudden. People saying like, oh, what's up with that tag end? What's up with that tag end? I believe it was Gerald Swindle one time, for you bass guys out there, that said if he didn't see the first 200 feet of line, he's not going to see that last 1/4 inch of tag line. So don't hassle me too much. I'm not cutting my tag lines off. But we're just going to pair this little jig with that. Water is so much warmer than the air is out. It's crazy. That's why we got all the fog. We're just going to pair that with a minnow and basically just get to work chucking at all these little sweet spots on these bigger pieces of structure. Don't be too concerned if you drive through the lake and you're like, ooh, I didn't really see any schools of walleyes. Because there's probably not really schools of walleyes. There's just not enough numbers of fish for there to be big schools. Right there. Wow, it did not take long. Could be right too. Oh my goodness, it is right off the bat too. Wow, first spot. And it's not a bad one. You know, it's a nice 16, 17er. This fish is so rewarding. So rewarding, man. So rewarding we're even gonna scoop them up. How about that? That's more rewarding a lot of times than catching a giant walleye on a system that's known for big walleyes. And I'm shocked that actually did not take that long. Now, never, and you know, a lot of times if you just watch me sit on the bow and cast that fish, that's a really nice fish, dude. He's probably 18, 19 incher. And a lot of times if you just watch me kind of sit up on the bow and cast that fish with the live, you probably assume I'm just watching my bait every time and watching the bait go right into the fish's mouth. A lot of times on these lakes, when you're just not dealing with big fish, the fish in these small lakes will press super tight to structure. So a lot of times all I'm doing is just drive around the lake with something like side imaging. See where rocks meet weeds. That's what's happening right on this spot. Get into that area, put the live down, see exactly where that rock meets the weeds, and make that really specific cast. So a lot of times it's more helping me, especially on a lot of these little lakes where there's not a ton of fish, helping me just put my bait right where it needs to be on that sweet spot in the structure. Right there. That's feeling good. That's feeling good. Well, guys, I went to a drop shot because I just kept casting at this one fish that was not biting. And oh my goodness, dude, it's a big walleye. It's a big walleye. Oh, well, big for this lake probably. All right, man. He's super nice. It's literally been probably an hour since I saw you guys last. Look at that one, dude. Oh my goodness. That is what success looks like right there. I can't believe that. That is a super good fish for coming to a new body of water like this, man. Wow. I ran through a whole bunch of spots and saw a few fish I was pitching at that just wouldn't bite. Could be the day, could be the weather, could just be maybe I suck at fishing, catching walleyes. I don't know. You know, sometimes you start to feel like that after a little while, but dude, that is the reward of finding one of these little lakes, coming to it, and putting something together. I know we've only caught 2 fish, but dude, that is a super nice one. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. That is cool. I mean, that is success in my book. Not necessarily catching 100 fish every day, but a lot of times kind of doing some research, finding a new body of water, and piecing something together. Wow, man, that is as good as it gets right there. That thing is probably, I'd say 20, oh, not a very graceful release. I'd say probably 24 inches. And you guys probably saw I just made a few pitches and was watching fish kind of move around and just was not getting a bite and not sure why. And normally this time of year, when we're kind of in this, you know, late summer into early fall transition, and I don't fish any night crawlers in the fall, but I made a couple casts with a jig of the minnow and just didn't get bit, and just quick, I literally have like 3 rods with. So I tied a drop shot up real quick with a whole crawler and just chucked it at him and just basically just let it sit there and sit there and sit there until he bit it. And basically I'm doing the same thing as I talked about fishing that jig and minnow. Just kind of going down some of these weed edges, and when I get kind of to a sweet spot, I mean, you can see like there's the edge right there. Gets kind of thick, there may be a fish tucked right up in here. But really just kind of nitpicking these tight little structures is kind of what we're doing. Well, guys, here's the honest truth. Been out here for probably 3.5 hours right now. Caught 2 walleyes as kind of that fog was burning off. And we're gonna go back, hit one more of these little humps we looked at. Caught a lot of bass, a lot of these small bass. So either one of 2 things is going on. Either A, there's just very few walleyes in this lake. B, a lot of these fish are just tucked way up in the weeds, which my guess is likely. I still don't think there's a ton of fish in here, but if you're not seeing fish like on that weed edge, which obviously we caught a couple there, these fish will tuck up in there in some of these real low numbers lakes, and you'll catch them right in with like bass and pike and other stuff. And that might just kind of be the deal. And generally you got to put on something like a jig and just throw it in there and just kind of work it out, keep it up, just kind of floating through the weeds, something like that. So that is definitely a possibility as well. But it's bright sunny now. Water's pretty clear. So if we are casting at a bunch of walleyes, we're definitely not catching them. That's kind of the realistic part of doing this. But we'll bang through another spot here and see what happens. Wow, dude. It's the right kind too. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe that. Dude, we have been grinding and grinding and grinding. Gotta scoop them because this fish is so important. There we go. Well, I was just pitching way up into the weeds here and trying to see if I could pull something out of it. And lo and behold, look at that right there. A beautiful 16-inch walleye. It's probably been about an hour since I caught the last fish, but we have, in fact, caught 3 walleyes on the new lake. I've also caught about 100 bass that are about 10 inches long. Oh man, that is rewarding. I mean, it's confirmed, right? If you come out here and spend 5 hours fishing and just catch 1, if you come out here, spend 3-4 hours and catch 3, I mean, there's a fishable population of walleyes in here, right? And that is very rewarding. Some of you guys might be watching this like, Tom, that's not a big fish at all. This has not been a glorious day of fishing. This is what it is, man. If you can come out to these lakes, you know that, look at, there's nobody out here. There's nobody fishing out here. I've seen one guy muskie fishing today. And you can come out here and put some walleyes together. I mean, people are not actively walleye fishing a lot of these lakes. So a lot of times you get these little hidden gems where, you know, you fish this area a couple times, you know, you find 3-4 spots the fish like, kind of what they like to bite. And you come out here and catch 5-8 walleyes each time you come out here. That's pretty good fishing. We're just kind of still putting it together, but it is rewarding. All right, well, obviously we're back in the truck now, loaded up, headed home. Spent probably 4 hours and 45 minutes out there, maybe 5 hours, something like that, to catch 3 walleyes. Not the normal kind of Tom Boley video where we just go out and normally I kind of break a pattern down and catch a bunch of fish. A lot of times when you just venture into the unknown, which is a lot of what these new lake videos are a lot of times, or if a new lake fishing day kind of is, you know, it could be 0 walleyes or 20 walleyes and you have no idea until you get there and try to fish. But the realistic fact is, anytime you go to a lake you've never been to before that you're hoping has a glimmer of hope to be a walleye lake and you catch 3 to 5 walleyes, that's enough of a glimmer of hope to make me come back. Maybe it's at a different time of year, maybe it's at a time of year where more fish are deep or shallow, kind of depending on how the lake sets up. But anytime you can come to a lake you've never been to before, hoping that maybe there's some walleye potential and put a few in the boat, it's all right with me, especially that bigger fish we caught. That is very intriguing when you see things like that. So hopefully you guys kind of enjoyed this video. Obviously a little bit different video, kind of showcasing, you know, the at-home homework you can do, to the on the lake, to the trying to break something down real quick, and things of that nature. But I had a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it as well. I'm currently headed home to wrap up some things at home, a little bit more work, clean the boat out quick, throw some socks and underwear in a bag, and get out of town and go fish somewhere else for hopefully the next week here and bring you guys some more content. But fall's just getting rocking and rolling. There's a lot of bitey fall fishing videos on the way here, and hopefully you guys stay along for the ride. So appreciate you guys watching this one. If you guys are not yet, please subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. We'll see you next time.